Robin Buckley on watercolor.
Doodle time.
Doodle time. Stranger Things, Season 5. This is not from Season 5. Robin Buckley. Cool outfit.
I'm using Strathmore 400 cold-pressed watercolor paper. I've got a set of watercolor paints. Got a palette to work from. A very ordinary, elementary set of watercolor brushes. I'll be using masking tape to tape down the paper I work on onto the desk so it doesn't move for camera. I've got water to activate my watercolor paints and to dilute them. And I'll be using a 2H and a 2B pencil for this. I got an eraser, and I'm using a white gel pen. So I'll start off by taping down my piece of paper to the table I'm working off of. This will not only prevent the paper from moving from the shot on camera, but it'll also create a nice edge when I finish the painting and remove the tape. Starting off very lightly, using a 2H pencil. It's a very dense pencil. The graphite doesn't lay too hard on the paper itself, even if you press down hard. So this I use this very light technique to lay down my kind of guidelines, to let myself know where everything on the paper is going to line up. And then afterwards, I'll go over with a softer pencil that goes on a lot harder or darker onto the paper. And I'll finish my drawing that way. But working light, I can get away with quite a lot of mistakes, easily remove them without them remaining visible on the piece of paper. There's some lines in the background, some elements of the background that are made up of a lot of straight lines, so just grabbing my ruler here to get those kind of pieced in place. Now that I've got a really rough outline done very lightly, I'm going to take a 2B pencil and make a bit more of a commitment to each of these lines I've set up. The ones I'm happy with, I'll go over with a darker pencil, or a softer pencil rather, that goes on darker. So when I talk about denseness of pencils, it's dense and soft are the two ends of the scale here. So originally I was using a denser pencil, which is a lot harder. It doesn't rub off too much of the graphite onto the paper, as opposed to the pencil I'm using now, which is a lot softer. So with the same amount of pressure, the lines I'm leaving on my piece of paper are a lot darker and defined. I've swapped back to my 2H pencil, and I've got a lot of the lines in place, but I'm using this lighter pencil and applying pressure very lightly, blocking out areas of shadow and highlights. Now I'm going to lay out my color palette, taking a look at my reference image and kind of gauging what colors I might need based on that. So I'm starting off by laying some color onto the background. I kind of want to set some colors in place around this painting and use those as a reference to gauge the color of the character that I'm trying to draw. Now I can use this orange while I've got it out to lay out a preliminary layer on my subject, on Robin Buckley. And to start with, I'm using quite a wide base brush to prevent myself from getting too caught up in the details this early in the painting. Now it's time to lay down some blue of Robin's vest. From the uniform that she wears when she's at work at the ice cream parlor. I mixed the blue a little bit darker, desaturated it by adding some orange into it. Any color you can pull the saturation out of by mixing some of its complementary color. So any color opposite of on the color wheel or color spectrum, you mix two of those colors together and they desaturate one another. And I've diluted it quite a bit to make this kind of bluish gray that I use to wash out the left side of the background. Doing something similar here behind Robin. Now this batch didn't turn out quite as blue, but I kind of like the differences in different sections. Quickly just finish this wash of the background here. So with this wash laid down, it gives me a good idea of how bright the white sections of the paper look in the painting. Going in and adding some shadow to Robin's face and any surrounding areas I can start building up on. And with watercolor, typically you're working from bright to dark or light to dark. It's tougher once you go too dark to brighten something. So I'm working in very light layers, building up very slowly. Filling out the name tag here. I think I might go in with a white marker or something and add detail on that. Got the lips laid out. Add some rosy red to the face around the cheeks. Skin tone is made up, or skin complexion is made up of so many different hues, so many colors that work together and give the overall illusion of someone's skin color. So I'm going to try and use as many different colors to recreate the skin color of Robin. And very similarly with hair pigments are made up of a whole different bunch of colors. So I'm going to try and implement a few different colors into the hair as well to give it a bit more life, I guess. Now building up some shape of the lips, around the eyes. Now, the way I tend to work is I'll take whatever color I've got mixed up and I'll see wherever I can add it on the canvas or the picture I'm making. I'll lay down that color kind of as much as I can before I gotta dump it and mix a different color. My brain kind of doesn't accept the traditional way of working and mixing colors where you have a whole bunch of different colors laid down mixed on your palette and you can just grab quickly different colors and lay them down. I also have a weird tendency not to want to switch brushes. I just filled up a whole area in Robin's hair with a tiny brush I could have done with a larger brush. Just the way my brain works. Now I'm laying down the foundation of Robin's skin, but in the lightest area. This is the lightest Robin's skin's gonna appear. And once I kind of lay this down, it'll give me an idea of how much more I gotta darken the shadows around Robin's face. I added some colors to the eyes. I think they were too white with the white of the paper showing through. So right now I've mixed a color that's not quite black, but it's gonna appear like black. I don't like using straight black on my paintings or in any pictures. I think it's very unnatural. Black and the color white don't typically appear in the world around us when we look at it with our eyes. It's usually all the dark aspects of the world around us on objects and things like that are really just very dark versions of a color. So I'll use this same color to give some shadow to Robin's vest. I'm gonna build up some of the color in the vest a bit more. So just for the fun of it, I've got this blue. I'm gonna add this to some of the hair. I know her hair isn't actually blue, but I think it's gonna give the illusion of appearing like black or brown in comparison with the orange around it. So this part's tricky. The stripes in Robin's uniform. I'm using the reference image as a guide for kind of how these line up to a certain degree. And beyond that, I'm just kind of winging it. Because ultimately what I think I gotta do is just communicate that these are stripes. Beyond that, I think, is just wasted effort. And at the top of Robin's sleeve, the stripes are a little jaggedy, like the shape of them aren't quite defined. That's to create the illusion of flaps and folds and stuff in Robin's sleeve. Since the stripes would contour with the shape of the fabric, they would kind of fold and get unshapely. And towards the end, I just kind of left it rough. I think the focus here in this piece, where I want to draw the eyes of the viewer, is the face. So as I get further away from the face, I can focus less and less on details. And building up a bit more of the hair now. The original idea I had to add blue in the hair did not work out. So I'm going to cover it up with some very dark, kind of grayish brown. And I have a habit of wanting to add an outline. I think that area specifically needed it. But I think while I'm at it, I can just add an outline everywhere. And gonna add some shadow to the uniform, to the sleeves. And then add the stripe on the bib for the uniform. And I'm just filling up currently the highlight areas of Robin's face with a bit more color. Too much of the white paper underneath was showing. A lot of watercolor pieces that I see by other artists, they have a lot of the paper showing through in the final piece, and it looks quite nice. I don't think I've mastered this medium enough yet to enjoy that about my own work. So I have a tendency of trying to cover as much of the white paper as possible with some sort of paint or pigment. So at this point, there's a lot of water on my brush and not as much pigment. So I can layer on colors very lightly, but it also, with the wet brush, allows me to mix whatever pigment's on the paper. And with this whole area on the right side of Robin, I don't know I didn't have a plan. This was the issue. I thought it was a whole bunch of negative space that needed to be filled. And I kind of went off the rails here. I think by introducing some blue in different parts of the picture, I'll be able to tie the right side of this picture in with the rest of it. I'm gonna darken the eyes a little bit. Now, this is where my tendency to want to add an outline to everything comes in. I'm gonna give some color to the background. I think it needs a bit more. And I'll just kind of stop there. No rhyme or reason. So at this point, I'm going to take off the tape that I've put around the border of this picture. And look how nice and clean of an edge this gives. Look how clean that is. Profesh. So I'm going to take a white gel pen and add some highlight reflections in the eyes. I think this gives any set of eyes a whole bunch of life. And with that white gel pen, I'm gonna add some details in Robin's name tag. R-O-B-I-N. Robin. Now to quickly initial this before I throw it in the garbage. So that's that. Robin, Stranger Things. Season whatever this was from.